Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is day 164. August the 16th, 2017, Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot to cover here. We're going to start with the True Pundit, but before I give you this story, I just want to reiterate what I said yesterday before this story came out, and I told you that when any type of political organization, any type of anti-government organization pops up, as soon as they appear on the radar screen, they are infiltrated. They are infiltrated by the FBI, by the intelligence agencies, the CIA, by local law enforcement task forces. They are infiltrated and they are watched very carefully. I know this because I've read many books on the FBI, the CIA. My father had two friends who served in the FBI. One I knew pretty well, had conversations with. At one point he was a client of mine. I have friends in law enforcement. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about when I tell you that all these groups are infiltrated, whether it's Antifa, or whether it's a white nationalist group, the KKK. It doesn't matter which group. The Occupy Wall Street. It really doesn't matter whether it was the Vietnam, and that's when I really learned a lot about this, was back when they used to infiltrate the Vietnam War protests. And so they would have thousands and thousands of protesters out there protesting the war, and of course they wanted to bust these hippies up. They wanted to crack some heads, but the hippies were pretty peaceful, so they would send agent provocateurs. These would be individuals who were undercover cops, detectives, FBI, CIA. They'd send them out into the crowd to create something violent. And then this would give the police the reason to start cracking some heads, to start busting up some hippies. It's exactly what they would do. They do it all the time. And they still do it. And they do it all over the place. In fact, I don't know if you guys remember the video that we got back during the Ferguson riots were happening, but there was two guys who were vandalizing something on a street corner, a business I believe it was, vandalizing something, and a group of people saw this. A couple guys saw it and said, "Hey, there's some guys vandalizing some stuff. Let's go get them and hold them until the police get here." So they ran over, these 4 or 5 guys ran over to the 2 guys who were doing the vandalizing, and they started to grab them. And as they did, these 2 guys jumped back and said, "Hey, back up," and pulled out their badges and said, "We're cops, we're law enforcement, we're the police, detectives, undercover." Busted. They were busted committing act of vandalism. They were committing vandalism because that's what they were being paid to do, even though they were law enforcement, they were undercover. Their job is to instigate. Their job is to create chaos. Remember the deep state, how it works. So I'm telling you that this stuff has been done. It's always been done, not just here in the United States, going all the way back to the very early part of our history, but in every country in the world, going back thousands and thousands of years to the very beginning of governments. Some people call these false flags. Some people call these, agent provocateur, various things. It's things that governments do to get control of situations or to move a situation in the direction they want it to go. They involve themselves in these things. That's what I was talking about in my video yesterday in regards to the fact that there was probably some stuff like that going on in Virginia. So, based on that, from the True Pundit, FBI admits federal informants linked to deadly Charlottesville riots unlikely to face charges. So they go a little farther, speaking with this FBI insider, and he said, it's unlikely that the leaders of the radical groups that clashed in the demonstrations that turned deadly in Charlottesville, Virginia, will face prosecution. Why, you ask? Well, he says, because the FBI said that they have already identified several federal informants who participated in the mob-like riots over the weekend in Virginia. The investigation is dicey because they had to navigate and separate they had to navigate these separate agreements with the people who were embedded in intelligence assets who were trying to pinpoint responsibility for the violence. He says the FBI has assets planted in white supremacy sects and Antifa and other groups, according to the law enforcement source. So he says, how can you charge someone who might be linked when you've been paying them for months or longer? So what he's saying is he's saying that they likely cannot prosecute the people who instigated the initial violence because they are in fact either A, civilian informants working, being paid as informants are, working for either local police, federal police, which would be the FBI, possibly the intelligence agencies. No one knows. Okay? So they can't go after these guys because they're actually informants. They're being paid. These are some of the guys who they know started some of the violence. They can't do anything to them because they're working for them. They're working for the government, whether it's local, federal, or the intelligence agencies. So this is exactly what I told you yesterday. I said if you really get into a deep investigation, I was talking to Jeff Sessions, if you really get into the deep investigation, you will probably find out that the agent provocateurs, that the people who probably started the initial violence, maybe the people who threw the first punches, maybe the people who threw those canisters of tear gas, they might have been either civilian informants or law enforcement, working undercover, doing what they were told to do, which was to go out there and create some violence, create some chaos, stir it up, mix it up. That's what they do. That's exactly what they do. Well documented. Time and time again, cops are caught instigating various types of violent acts, stirring up chaos. It's part of the plan of what they do. And I told you that yesterday. Now we have a FBI insider and some other type of law enforcement insider telling this reporter, which is now in the True Pundit. You can read it if you like. Just go to truepundit.com and read the headline. FBI admits federal informants linked to deadly Charlotte riots unlikely to face charges. It's like, reminds me of the first World Trade Center bombing. You know, when they finally got to the end of all the hearings and all the investigations and everything that was done, they finally come to find the truth, which was reported by Dan Rather right there on the 6:30 evening news, where he told you, well, it appears that the bomber of the World Trade Center, the first World Trade Center bombing, it appears that the person who got the bomb to the people who were going to set the bomb off were informants working for the FBI, and of course the bomb was given to them by the FBI, and hey, it was even a working bomb. Normally they give them a dud. No, they actually gave him a real bomb. And then they went ahead and let him explode the bomb. You know, it's one thing if they give him the bomb, a fake bomb, you know, to set him up. It's another thing if you give him a real bomb. But it's even worse when you let them actually explode the bomb. But that's exactly what they did. That's what happened in the first World Trade Center bombing. And how do we know? Because the informant that they were using started to, you know, get kind of nervous about whether or not he was going to be set up. And so he stuck a tape recorder underneath the table where he and the FBI agents would routinely meet to have a conversation, where they would meet with him and give him all the instructions, tell him what to do, tell him to go out how to recruit these people, how to find these people, how to radicalize them. Once they got them radicalized and got them all motivated to carry out the violent act, then the FBI provided them with the bomb, with the ability to know how to set the bomb off, gave them the time and location best to do it, the best place to place the bombs to get the maximum damage, and then they went ahead and let them go ahead and explode the bombs. That's what happened, my friends. You see, this is what's going on, and this is why if Jeff Sessions, that's why I was half joking when I said we'll see if Jeff Sessions really wants to get to the bottom of it. Because what happens if the investigators come into Jeff Sessions and go, oh, well, Mr. Attorney General, you know, there's something you should know before we start pushing too hard on this investigation and getting people all worked up. We probably just want to let this thing go away because, well, Mr. Attorney General, it appears that maybe the the initial punches that were thrown were actually some FBI informants, and it appears that those guys who threw the smoke tear gas canisters were actually CIA contractors. So we may not want to go down that road, sir, and have this thing go in front of a grand jury where these FBI agents and intelligence agents have to come out and tell the truth or lie under oath. We don't want to put them in that way. I mean, right now they've infiltrated these groups and they're doing some things for us. So it's just this is what we do, sir. So I don't think Jeff Sessions is that naive. Jeff Sessions knows exactly how these things work. He's been in law enforcement for a very, very long time. So stop playing us for fools. Stop playing us for fools. There's a very long history. Much of it is very well documented on false flags, agent provocateur, thousands and thousands. I could sit here for hours and hours and hours, my friends, and take you through story after story after story. I've read thousands of books. I used to have a lot of time on my hands when I worked for the government. Now I work in the private sector. I actually got to bust my ass every day. Alrighty. So, there you go, my friends. Just as I told you yesterday, probably the things going on around that little riot in Charlottesville that will never be allowed to come to light, because it will show a lot of things that we're not supposed to know about, just like a lot of things we weren't supposed to know about 9/11 and the Kennedy assassination, the Spanish-American War, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, Mr. Curveball, the insider with all the intel. I could go on for hours and hours, my friends. Every damn bit of it documented. I could write a freaking book, and I probably should. Well, the Gateway Pundit. Carl Bernstein, who's only tweeted 54 times in his entire life, comes out yesterday, Tuesday, with a tweet. So Carl Bernstein of Watergate fame tweets out on Tuesday that important Republicans and high-ranking military officials and intelligence figures are privately saying that Trump is unfit to serve as president. Well, this is just more proof of what we already know, that there is a deep state coup underway. Of course, Mr. Bernstein's probably on the team. He's probably even being paid or compensated in some way for his contribution, because they will enlist anybody and everybody that they can get to attack the president, because they know he's peeing in their punch bowl. He's ruining their party. Yes, the party that never ends, and D.C. is coming to an end. Donald Trump is the party pooper. He's coming in and peeing in the punch bowl. He's taking away all the alcohol, forcing these people to have a reality check. Yes, Mr. Bernstein, you're a little late to the party. Many of us have been telling you that there's a deep state coup underway for a very long time. And those important Republicans that you're referring to are not important at all. They're just men. Very corrupt men, very bought and paid for men, very dangerous men, very ignorant men, very sick men, and many of whom I hope will be sent packing in 2018 and 2020. They certainly deserve it. And these high-ranking military officials and intelligence figures, yeah, we know who they are. I told you all about them. They're the neocons who've taken over the State Department, taken over the Department of Defense, taken over the Pentagon. We know exactly who they are. Mr. Bernstein, I've identified them in previous videos. Why don't you watch one of my videos, Mr. Bernstein? I'll tell you exactly who they are. I don't need to know their names. It's not important what their names are. It's a game of musical chairs with the military-industrial complex. They just move around from one place to another. One day the guy's a CEO of a bank. The next day he's the head of a defense contractor. The next day he's in the Senate. They just revolve around, working from the deep state, from the Pentagon to the private sector, back into politics and back around. It's just a circular motion. My. Many media reports are still sticking to the idea, just as I reported, that there was a stand down in Virginia, in Charlottesville. A stand down. Now, these are local reporters. A couple of these reporters who were on scene were local reporters, cameramen, producers, and people like that. And these are people who they're local reporters, which means they still have a shred of credibility to them. They don't work for CNN and MSNBC. They've not been bought off by the big corporates yet. They're still working for small local news stations. They still have some credibility. We have some of them on film. We also have quite a bit of actual film footage, which many of us have been watching for the past couple days. We have many people who were there, many people who are giving first-hand accounts. I've probably spent 2 or 3 hours over the past 2 or 3 days watching videos of eyewitness accounts of everything that happened. I've looked at the video that people have taken, showing the initial punches being thrown, showing the smoke canisters going off. We have the reporter who went on Tucker Carlson and said, I was standing right there. I watched 15 cops. They're a few feet away from the guys who are throwing the tear gas canisters. At which point I look over and ask the cop, hey, what's going on? What are you going to do about that? You know, you're going to stop that? Now's the time to probably, it's getting out of hand. You guys going to do anything? And the cop looked at him and said, no. In fact, we're getting out of here. This thing's getting too violent. Of course there was a stand down. You don't have to be a genius. Did you see any cops jumping into the fray? Did you see people being arrested for throwing tear gas? Did you see people being arrested for carrying weapons? Did you see people being busted for smacking people over the head with clubs? No, you did not. Why? Because they weren't doing it. They weren't doing nothing. They were standing down. And that comes from an order. Because believe me, you get all them cops out there in full body armor with billy clubs and guns and handcuffs and mace and every damn thing else, they probably want to jump in the fray and kick a little ass. I've been in that situation. Believe me, I've been in that situation. It gets your blood pumping. You want to get in the game a little bit. Yes, you do. These guys weren't allowed to get in the game. They were told to stand on the sidelines in the peanut throwing section and be spectators until things got really nasty, and then they got the hell out of there. We saw that also in the LA riots. Remember that? If you're old enough to remember the LA riots, when people were standing on the corner waiting for the cops to get there and protect their businesses or protect them, their personal safety, and the cops zipping through the intersection, running red lights. One guy has a cop comes to the end of the corner. He runs over, says something to the cop. The cop tells him, says, I'm getting out here and you should too. No, they got the hell out of there, man. These guys don't get paid good enough to risk their lives. Not a lot of them. Some of them maybe. But most of these guys, man, they're you know, they like riding around in the police cruiser. They like that retiring at 40 with full pension benefits and all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty cool job, but they're not going to get their balls busted in the process unless they have to. They're going to avoid that if they can. But yes, there's no question it was a stand down. Look at the video. Look at the video. How many people were arrested? How many people did you see getting beat down? Believe me, I've been to these types of things. I've been involved in them. I can tell you what happens when there's no stand down. When there's no stand down and the police are actually doing what they trained to do and what they want to do, believe me, if they're not told to stand down, as soon as they see punches being thrown, they start whacking people. They start whacking people. They bring the paddy wagon over and they start beating the snot out of people. Beat them unconscious. Beat them to a bloody pulp. Handcuff them. Hog tie them with the plastic straps. I've seen people hog-tied, thrown into the back of a van. Believe me, I know what it looks like when the police respond, and I know what it looks like when they stand down. I surely do, Mr. McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe and the mayor, I don't blame them, though. I mean, quite honestly, someone was killed. There could be a wrongful death lawsuit here. And who do you think might be on the other end of that wrongful death lawsuit? Well, certainly the individual who's driving the car is looking at a murder rap. That's not wrongful death. That's murder, basically. But if the governor or the mayor gave a stand-down order, or if we find out that they wanted this altercation to happen, if we learn any of these types of things, my oh my, you will have quite the lawsuit against the city and the police and the state. The governor represents the state. It's that wrongful death lawsuit that's got Mr. McAuliffe and the mayor quite nervous right now. Hopefully some truth will come out. We'll never get the whole truth. As we just heard from the FBI informant, True Pundit, we'll never get the real truth, because if they reveal the truth, just like if they reveal the truth about a lot of things, you'll find out that things are never what they seem. Remember, if I haven't told you before, let me tell you this now. Just about everything you've been told throughout your entire life by the government is a lie. Just about everything you've been told about the world that you live in, the country you grew up in, by the government is a lie. Plain and simple. Hate to break it to you if this is the first time you've heard that. Some of you may be crying now, probably reaching for a tissue. I don't blame you. It broke my heart when I first found out too. When I was a very young man. But then I read a lot of books, studied a lot of history, experienced some of it firsthand. I can assure you, my friends, what I'm telling you is true. The government lies to you about everything, all day, every day. Yes, they do. So, Mr. McAuliffe, we have proof there was a stand down. We've got the damn video. Let me see the arrest reports. Yes, that's right, Mr. McAuliffe. The only question is, who gave the stand down order? Who instructed the police not to take action? Who instructed the police to herd those people directly into the mouth of the left-wing radicals who have a history of violence where there was no police protection for them whatsoever? Whose plan was that, Mr. McAuliffe? The Conservative Journal reporting, evidence suggests that Comey perjured himself over Trump wiretap claims. Well, what brought this into the headlines? Well, I'll tell you what brought this into the headlines. Apparently, Devin Nunes is starting to find his game again, because apparently he has tweeted out, apparently someone did a story that said something to the effect of that there was about Comey's testimony in Congress, where Comey testified under oath in Congress that he had no evidence of any of Trump's wiretapping claims, which is what Towergate is all about, isn't it? But it appears that after this journalist writing this story regarding the testimony of James Comey making that statement, Devin Nunes picked up on it, and he tweeted out that the facts prove otherwise. That he personally, Devin Nunes, personally observed, listened to transcripts, read the transcripts of the surveillance of Trump transition team members whose conversations were monitored and unmasked. Devin Nunes knows that Trump's transition team members were surveilled and unmasked because he saw the transcripts, probably heard the tapes. That's what he knows. That's what he knows there's evidence to support. So the fact that James Comey under oath said that there's no evidence of any wiretapping claims, he had to know he was lying. He had to know there was wiretapping. Had to know it. Just another lie that he's been caught in. I wonder if that'll be in his book. He could do a whole book just on the lies and the leaks. James Comey, Lies and Leaks. That would actually be a very, very good selling book. It will sell a hell of a lot more copies than this dud he's gonna write and put out there, probably with a ghostwriter full of BS. That book probably will be in the cutout section within 14 minutes of being released. Now write a book called James Comey, My Lies and Leaks. That sumbitch will sell 4 or 5 million copies in the first half hour. You know, some people baffle me. The leader, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, was recently giving a speech where he stated that, quote, hate speech should not be protected or is not protected under the First Amendment. What an idiot. What an absolute complete freaking moron. What school did this guy go to? What country did this guy grow up in? What in the world history did he study? I cannot believe that this guy would say that hate speech is not protected under the First Amendment. That's exactly why you have the First Amendment. To protect ugly speech. To protect hate speech. It's exactly why it's there. It's not there to protect pretty speech. You don't need a First Amendment to protect pretty speech. You have the First Amendment to protect ugly speech. This guy clearly has no idea about the history of this country. Back in the days of early America, the way the political campaigns, the way people talked to each other, the way that they talked about politicians, treated each other even. I mean, we are a far more polite society than we ever were back in the early days, the days of early America. You know, back in the early 1800s, if a politician went back on a promise or spun something or did something like that, they literally would surround his house with, you know, mobs. Sometimes they would drag him out of their house, throw him on a wagon, drag him through town. They would be tarred and feathered. And as they would be pulled through town, people would throw things at him and yell obscenities at him. Early America was a rough and tumble place. That's how we got to where we are. We're far more polite now. But these people, these snowflakes, would have never survived in early America. And they certainly don't understand it. People used to really speak their mind. Now people are all politically correct, walking on eggshells. But man, back in the mid-1800s, early 1800s, people were very blunt. They would look at your face and tell you exactly what they thought about you. And if you were a politician, politicians used to fear. The tax collectors used to live in fear. They used to have armed guards guarding the homes of tax collectors. Because if people had a tax dispute with them, people would come with a gun to discuss that tax dispute. People would drag politicians out of their houses and tar and feather them and berate them, and you just imagine what the town halls were like back then. I mean, mob scenes and stuff. Politicians used to fear, absolutely fear their constituents. That's when America worked. This guy's an idiot. The First Amendment is there to protect hate speech, period, and ugly speech, all forms of very, very hateful speech. It's not there to protect violence. It's there to protect hate speech. Because it's a lot better to have these people out in the open. You'd much rather have the KKK, white nationalist, Antifa, the fascist, the communist. You'd much rather have these people out in the public eye where we can all see them than in the shadows where you can't see them. This is a fact of history, and this is what our founding fathers knew. This is why we have the First Amendment, is to protect really ugly speech. So whoever this guy is for Black Lives Matter, he's an idiot. He's an undereducated, uninformed snowflake. And it's just amazing that you have this kind of stuff going on. Mitch McConnell, he's upset that Trump is holding him accountable. Well, you know, I told you when Mitch came out and made the first statement, he should have just shut his mouth after that. Instead, he came out and made a second statement, got himself in even deeper, and now he's even commenting a third time. But if you heard his comments now the third time, it's a drastically different attitude than what he had the first two times. He's had a severe attitude change. Now he's doing the kumbaya. He's doing the we all need to come together moment. Because he realizes that he just got his butt kicked in that little thing right there, and he talked about, yeah, we do need to get together and put forth this legislation. We got a president who will sign it. Blah blah blah. He was coming pretty darn close to praising Trump, pretty darn close to saying, yeah, Trump's right. You know, we haven't been getting very much done. What we promised the voters to do, because McConnell has read the polls. He's read the tea leaves. He's listened to the people around him and said, Mitch, you lost this one, buddy. Trump gotcha. He gotcha. 99% of the Republican voters are siding with him. They know that you have failed miserably as leader of the Senate, particularly on Obamacare. You have no way to win on this. You better go out there and do a mea culpa. You better go out there and offer a whole completely different take on the whole thing, which is exactly what he did. Mitch McConnell now groveling on his knees to Trump. And like I told you a couple days ago, and people say, yeah, well, now Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are gonna double down and they're not gonna do anything. Well, he may come out and some people say, oh, he's just saying that, but he actually won't do it. Let's watch and see. I promise you, there's a hell of a lot more pressure on Twitch and the Republicans in the Senate and in the House. There's a lot more pressure on them to produce than there ever has been before this all fired up. And if they try to do any type of feet dragging, anything like that, that will be the end for them. I mean, literally. I mean, you will see a ton of these guys thrown out of office, which we're going to try to do anyway. One final thing. I'm watching Trump at the press conference today. I don't know how many of you watched that, but it was fantastic. It was just unbelievable. Normally, when a politician gets himself into trouble with the media, he comes out and he backtracks and spins and apologizes and just it's horrible to watch the way these guys act whenever they got the media on their back. But watching Trump out there today at that press conference, man, right in their face, jumping right down their throat. He's not backtracking on anything. He's not sidestepping anything. He is loud, proud, and in your face. And he's just giving the media hell. It was just absolutely fantastic, man. I love this guy. You know, it wouldn't even matter if I agreed with all of his policies or whatever. Just the fact that this guy is, you know, doesn't take crap. He comes out there. He doesn't back down. He does. You can't work this guy over, man. I mean, I don't think he cares. Maybe it's because he's just so rich or whatever. I don't know. But whatever it is, I mean, this guy, he doesn't back down, man. He stands his ground. He jumps in your face. He defends his positions. He doesn't, you know, try to spin out of anything. And I can't help thinking as I'm sitting back watching this, you know, lots of Democrats and progressives, while they may hate Trump to death, they may think he's, you know, the next Hitler or whatever. I absolutely guarantee that there's literally probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Democrats, progressives, sitting back watching Trump and going, man, I hate that guy, but I sure wish we had a Democrat that had a backbone like that had a pair of balls the size of Trump's. I wish we had a Democrat that would stand up and defend himself that way and defend what he believes in and say what he thinks and tell the truth as he sees it. Man, I wish we had a Democrat like that. That's exactly what Democrats and progressives are saying when they look at Trump. They may hate him. They may disagree with all his policies. But I guarantee you that a lot of Democrats out there are wishing that they had a Democrat with the intestinal fortitude of President Trump. He is absolutely amazing. It's beyond entertaining, and he's doing a great job. That's the sad part about it. So much of what he's doing is really good, is being overshadowed. But anyway, that's the state of things today. Wednesday, day 164, Towergate, August the 16th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow night. We'll see what happens next. See ya. Bye.